The room behind the blue door. Brandon never expected to leave the city so suddenly. But when his friend Lila offered him her late aunt's vacant guest house for the summer, rent-free, he didn't hesitate. After 2 years of bouncing between dead-end jobs and a half-finished graphic design degree, Brandon figured a quiet retreat in a coastal town might finally clear his mind. The house stood at the edge of Moonbridge, a sleepy seaside village where waves crashed against jagged rocks and neighbors still waved to each other. Lila's aunt had passed away unexpectedly, and the guest house, set apart from the main cottage by a stone path and an overgrown rose trellis, hadn't been touched in over a year. "This is it," Lila said, swinging open the creaky wooden door painted a fading sky blue. "You've got full privacy. Electricity's working. Hot water too. Just stay out of the attic if you can." My aunt was, sentimental. Brandon chuckled. "You make it sound haunted." Lila gave him a half-smile. "Not haunted. Just full of memories." He nodded, eager to unpack. Lila left after a quick hug, promising to check in by the weekend. Alone now, Brandon stood in the center of the guest house, taking it all in. It was charming. Cozy. Dusty. The furniture was a mix of antique and boho-chic floral drapes, a clawfoot tub, and a vanity that looked like it belonged on a movie set. There were shelves of vintage books and a thick woven rug that muffled his footsteps. As the sun dipped below the cliffs, Brandon noticed a faint scent of lavender in the air, sweet, nostalgic, and oddly calming. He found the attic door while putting away his backpack. It was hidden behind a linen curtain in the hallway. The blue door had no handle, just a small brass keyhole. Brandon didn't give it much thought. At least, not until the second night. The days passed quietly. Brandon spent his time sketching, cooking simple meals, and exploring the tide pools near the beach. He started feeling more rested than he had in months. But he couldn't stop thinking about the attic. On the third night, after a storm swept through the town and knocked out the power for a few hours, Brandon lit some candles and opened one of the old books on the shelf. A yellowed photograph slipped out of a woman in a flowing dress, standing at the edge of the same beach he'd walked that morning. Her smile was radiant. On the back, written in looping cursive, Elena, 1982. The summer everything changed. Curiosity prickled his skin. He stood, walked to the curtain, and pulled it back. The blue door stared back, silent and untouched. Something made him press against it. To his surprise, it gave way with a low creak. No key. No resistance. Inside, the attic was unlike anything he'd expected. It wasn't dusty or dark, it had been preserved, almost reverently. Sunlight streamed through a round window, illuminating racks of vintage dresses, rows of hats, drawers of scarves, and satin gloves. A full-length mirror stood in the corner, flanked by an old-style vanity with antique perfume bottles and hairbrushes. Brandon's breath caught. This was no ordinary storage space. This was a dressing room. He took a step inside. Then another. The air shimmered with the scent of rose water and faded talcum powder. On impulse, Brandon reached for a soft lilac robe hanging from a hook. The fabric was impossibly delicate. He ran his fingers down the sleeve. Before he could think too hard, he slipped it on. The sensation was electric. Not in a sensual way, but in a soul-deep, goosebump-praising, pulse-slowing kind of way. He stood before the mirror, his reflection flickering in the candlelight. The robe clung softly to his shoulders. For the first time, Brandon didn't see himself. He saw someone else, someone right. He sat at the vanity, brushing the sleeve of the robe over the back of his hand. His fingers hovered above a tube of lipstick. His heart thundered. This is ridiculous, he told himself. This feels like home, something deeper replied. That night he didn't sleep. He kept returning to the mirror. The robe. The scents. He imagined who Elena was. What her summer of 1982 had been. Why she'd left all this behind. And why it called to him so fiercely. Her name was whispered in silk. Brandon wasn't sure when he fell asleep, if he even had. The morning sunlight painted stripes across the guesthouse walls, and for the first time in a long while, he didn't wake up with dread lodged in his chest. Still in the lilac robe from the attic, he sat up slowly, the fabric rustling like a soft exhale. Something inside him had shifted. Not broken, but loosened, like a long-jammed lock finally turning. The note in the mirror. After breakfast, barely touched, Brandon found himself drawn back to the attic. His steps were quieter this time, reverent almost. He hadn't told Lila. He didn't even text her back. He needed this space to be just his for now. As he stepped inside, something glinted near the vanity. A small, folded piece of paper was tucked between the mirror and the frame. He didn't remember it being there before. It read, "If you're here, then you've already felt it. The robe was my first step too. I hope it made you feel seen. Don't rush. Just follow what feels honest." His fingers trembled. Elena. Was she writing to him? Or to herself? To someone like him? He folded the note carefully, heart racing with something that wasn't fear. The dress with the tiny pearls. That afternoon, the town stretched quietly beyond the windows, unaware of the storm swirling inside Brandon's chest. He went back up and opened the wardrobe. Among the vintage fabrics, one dress stood out, a cream sheath with tiny hand-sewn pearls across the collar and sleeves. The tag read, "June Gala, 1982. Brandon didn't think. He just moved. Like he was following muscle memory he never knew he had. The dress fit like it had waited for him. When he looked in the mirror, something in his reflection softened. Not because he looked different, but because he wasn't resisting anymore. His voice came out in a whisper, shaky and unsure. But the name surprised him. "Callie," he said. "My name is Callie." The moment was fragile and perfect. The knock on the door. Later that evening, just as the golden hour painted the windows, a knock came at the door. Brandon. Callie, she reminded herself, panicked. She scrambled out of the dress and robe, shoving them under the bed and pulling on a hoodie and jeans. It was Lila. She held up a brown bag with takeout containers and a bottle of red wine. "Thought you might need company." Callie hesitated. Was she glowing? Was something obvious? She stepped aside to let Lila in. They ate by candlelight, power flickered off again, a common Moombridge quirk, and talked about nothing. The town. The weather. An old crush Lila spotted at the grocery store. But Lila kept sneaking glances at her. Finally, she said, "You look lighter. Like the air's changed around you." Callie smiled carefully. "I think I'm just settling in." Lila's eyes lingered a moment too long. "Right," she said softly. "Settling in." A name written in dust. After Lila left, Callie climbed back to the attic. She stood before the mirror again, fingers tracing her reflection. The robe. The dress. The girl. She opened the vanity drawer. Inside was a small lipstick case, gold with floral etching. She twisted it open. A rich berry shade. Underneath it, carved faintly into the wood, were 4 words. "Her name is Callie." Her knees gave way. She sat on the vanity stool and covered her mouth. She hadn't written it. But somehow it was there. Had Elena written it decades ago? For someone she'd never met? Or had someone else been here, someone just like her? The attic wasn't haunted. It was a sanctuary. A cocoon. A promise. The woman in the photograph. The next few mornings passed like pages in a dream. Callie's body still answered to Brandon at the grocery store, at the gas pump, even when the mail carrier waved and said, "Hey, bud." But in the mirror, she met someone else. Not just in clothes or expression, but in stillness. In clarity. In truth. She spent most of her mornings in the attic, a ritual she'd never predicted would bring her peace. Pulling back the curtain. Opening the blue door. Sinking into the robe. Trying on Elena's gowns, sometimes elegant silk, other times flowy sundresses that caught the breeze through the round attic window. Each day, she practiced her voice. She whispered her name like it was a secret she'd earned. Callie. The album behind the mirror. One gray afternoon, as raindrops tapped the window like curious fingers, Callie decided to clean the vanity. Not just dust, really clean. As she moved it slightly to sweep behind it, something clunked against the floorboards. A thin latch popped loose on the mirror's wooden frame. Callie paused, then gently lifted the backboard. Behind it was a flat, leather-bound photo album, brittle with age. Its cover read in gilded script, to be remembered only by the ones who understand. She sat cross-legged on the floor and flipped it open. Each page held photos of women, some laughing in sun hats, others posed in the reflection of the attic mirror itself. Hairstyles and makeup shifted from the 70s to the late 90s. Names were written in faded ink beneath each one. Marcy, 1983. First time she said it out loud. Elena, 1982. Wore the emerald dress like a queen. Jordan, 1997. Cried and laughed for 2 hours straight. Dozens of names. Dozens of moments. A sisterhood, invisible to the world, but alive in this room. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't alone. She never had been. The visit that came too soon. That Saturday, just as Callie was applying a gentle pink lip stain, trying to perfect a look she told herself was just for the mirror, a car door slammed outside. She panicked. Footsteps crunched the gravel. Then a knock. Too late to run. Too early to lie. Lila. Hey, sorry, I was out running errands and saw the storms coming back tonight. Thought you might need candles or batteries. Callie hesitated. Still in a sundress, face half made up, toes painted from the night before. She opened the door only a crack. Lila blinked. Oh. Callie braced for the question. But Lila just stepped back slightly and said, "Can I come in?" Heart in her throat, Callie stepped aside. The silence in the room buzzed louder than any storm. Lila looked around, then gently sat on the couch. She glanced at Callie, really looked. "You've been different lately." Callie sat across from her, hands in her lap. "I've been honest." Lila's eyes didn't flinch. "Is Callie your name?" A small tear slipped from Callie's eye. She nodded. "I always knew you weren't just Brandon," Lila said. "You were never comfortable in that version." Callie's mouth quivered. "Are you okay with this?" "I don't need to be okay with it." "You do. And, from where I'm sitting, you seem finally okay." For the first time since the attic door opened, Callie cried in front of someone else. And Lila just hugged her, resting her chin on Callie's shoulder. "You don't have to hide here. Not from me. Not from the world." The mystery call. The next morning, still reeling from Lila's acceptance, Callie's phone rang from a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "Hello." A pause. Then a husky voice. "Is this the person staying in Elena Ray's guest house?" Callie froze. "Yes, who is this?" Another pause. "My name is Margot. I was her best friend. I used to live in Moonbridge a long time ago." Callie's grip tightened on the phone. "I don't mean to intrude," the woman said. "But if you've found the attic, and the mirror, and the album, then I think you might need to hear Elena's story. She left a letter for the next person. For you." Callie swallowed hard. "Where can I find you?" Margot's voice cracked gently. "You don't find me, sweetheart. I'll come to you." Elena's secret letter. By the time Margot arrived, the afternoon sun had dipped low enough to turn the sky a tender peach. Callie paced the length of the guest house, nerves prickling her skin. She hadn't told Lila about the call. She wasn't sure how to explain it yet. A silver sedan rolled up the gravel path. Margot stepped out slowly, dressed in pressed navy slacks and a floral scarf wrapped around her neck. She looked to be in her 70s, but carried herself with the kind of composure that could silence a room. Her white hair was tied in a low bun, her eyes shielded by oversized sunglasses. "You must be her," Margot said softly, walking up the path. "I always wondered who would open that door next." Callie's breath caught. I didn't mean to snoop." "The attic." Margot waved it off gently. "You didn't snoop. You arrived." Elena said the right one would know when to look. Tea and truth. They sat on the porch, crickets beginning their evening song. Margot poured tea from a thermos she brought. "Elena was like you," she began. "Not just in how she dressed, but in how she hid. For decades." Callie sipped slowly. "Did she transition?" Margot smiled, eyes gleaming. "Not publicly. She was too afraid. The town was too small back then. But here, in this guest house, she built her own world." She reached into her purse and handed Callie a yellowed envelope. "She wrote this for whoever came next. She made me promise to wait until the attic opened again. Took 33 years. Callie's fingers trembled as she opened the letter. To whoever you are. I was once exactly you. Scared. Curious. Alone. Then brave in secret. The mirror showed me someone I wasn't supposed to be. But also someone I couldn't unsee. I never had the chance to live as her, but maybe you will. And if you do, live fully. Laugh loudly. Love bravely. I've left something for you. It's in the velvet box. You'll know what to do when the time comes. Elena. Callie pressed the letter to her chest. The words felt like a torch being passed. The velvet box. After Margot left with a final hug and misty eyes, Callie climbed to the attic in silence. She knew where the box was, tucked behind the vanity mirror's bottom drawer. She'd seen it before but had been too afraid to open it. Tonight, she felt ready. The box was soft, maroon velvet with a tiny clasp. Inside was a single golden locket on a chain. Callie opened it. One side held a photo Elena, in the emerald wrap dress, laughing with her whole face. The other side was empty. No mirror. No gem. Just a tiny folded note tucked inside. This spot is for your photo someday. When you've stopped looking into the mirror to see who you might be, and start seeing the woman you already are. Wear this the first time you let the world meet her. Callie clutched the locket to her chest. And cried. A new day, a new name. The next morning, Callie didn't go to the attic. She didn't need to. Instead, she pulled open the closet in the guest house bedroom, the one she'd filled, little by little, with things that felt right. She chose a soft navy blouse, a fitted skirt, a pair of flats. Minimal makeup. Loose curls. Elena's locket around her neck. She looked in the hallway mirror and didn't flinch. That day, she didn't introduce herself as Brandon at the coffee shop. She didn't lower her voice when saying her name. The barista smiled and repeated it back. One iced caramel latte for Callie? Callie beamed. That's me. The stranger with Elena's eyes. The road out of Moonbridge twisted between cliffs and sea like a ribbon caught in the wind. Callie gripped the wheel of her borrowed car, Elena's locket resting against her chest like an anchor. She had accepted an invitation, one she might have declined a month ago. Lila's cousin Harper, a traveling artist, was opening a gallery exhibit in Windermere, a bigger coastal town an hour north. Lila had nudged. Encouraged. It's time, she'd said. Let people see the Callie I see. So here she was, clutching a printed invitation and wearing a flowing navy jumpsuit that Bella had helped tailor just for her. She parked a block away from the gallery and sat for a full 5 minutes, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Deep breath, she whispered. She's real. I'm real. Then she stepped out into the world. The Gallery of Firsts. The gallery was a modern building made of glass and pale wood, warm lights glowing inside like candles in a lantern. People flowed around her like waves, sipping wine, admiring abstract paintings, murmuring names she didn't know. She kept her back straight, her chin lifted. She could hear Elena's voice in her mind. Don't shrink. Step into your shape. She was midway through admiring a painting, a woman in a windstorm, cloak fluttering, face obscured, when she felt it. A gaze. Familiar. Heavy. She turned slowly. Standing near the entrance was someone she hadn't seen in over 2 years. Evan. He looked the same, maybe more tired, scruffier. He was with a friend, but his eyes were locked on her. And not with confusion. With recognition. Callie's lungs seized. He walked toward her slowly. Her heart beat like a snare drum. Brandon, he said, voice lowered. She swallowed. Not anymore. His mouth opened slightly. Then shut. Then, after a pause, I didn't expect to see you. Neither did I, she said quietly. There was an awkward beat. Then a surprising one. You look, he stopped himself, then finished honestly, happy. She blinked. I am. Finally. Evan looked down. I'm glad. You always seemed like you were wearing a costume. Now you look like you took it off. It was the most unexpected grace he could have given her. The woman in the red hat. She wandered outside for air, shoes crunching against gravel. That's when she saw her. A woman in a wide red hat, sitting on a bench just off the gallery lawn. She looked about 70, her posture elegant, her fingers holding a small leather book. Callie recognized the scarf first. Elena's scarf. The one in the photo from the attic album. The woman looked up and smiled. You must be Callie. Callie froze. How do you? I knew Elena. I knew you'd come. She patted the bench. Sit. Cautiously, Callie joined her. I'm Josephine. Elena and I shared this legacy, I suppose you could call it. That guest house? That attic? It wasn't just a hiding place. It was a lighthouse. Callie's chest clenched. Why are you here? Josephine reached into her coat and pulled out a thick envelope, sealed in wax. Because it's your turn now. Callie's hands shook as she took it. Josephine smiled. You've done something Elena couldn't. You walked outside with the light on. It's time to decide if you'll keep it to yourself or shine it for others. The letter and the choice. Back at the guest house, under candlelight, Callie opened the envelope. Inside was a long letter, Elena's true story. Her love. Her heartbreak. Her hiding. Her hope. But there was also a deed. A legal transfer. The guest house. The attic. The land. To Callie. At the bottom was a note. If you've made it this far, then you're ready to make it farther than I ever did. Make this place what it was always meant to be. Not a hiding spot, but a sanctuary. Callie stared at the papers, her hands covering her mouth. She didn't know how to do this, but she knew she had to. The Lighthouse Awakens. The guest house looked different now. Not because Callie had painted the walls or replaced the furniture, but because she was different. She'd stopped tiptoeing. Stopped hiding her dresses behind old hoodies. The attic wasn't a place she escaped to anymore. It was the heart of her new beginning. The legacy plan. Callie spread the documents across the kitchen table, deed, letter, handwritten floor plans from Elena herself. Elena had dreamed of turning the guest house into a sanctuary, a private, peaceful retreat for anyone questioning their identity, needing a place to breathe, to feel safe, to become. Callie's eyes burned with tears. Elena hadn't just left her a house. She'd left her a mission. Lila's confession. Later that week, Lila stopped by with blueberry scones and a distracted look. I need to tell you something, she said, brushing crumbs from her jeans. Callie froze. What is it? Lila hesitated. Then, I've always known about the attic. Callie's heart stuttered. What? My aunt showed it to me when I was 15, Lila said softly. She told me it was sacred. That one day, someone like her would come again. That if I ever saw them, I'd know. She looked directly at Callie. And I knew the day I saw you in that robe. Callie blinked, stunned. Why didn't you say anything? Because it wasn't my story to name, Lila whispered. It was yours to claim. Callie reached across the table and took her hand. In that moment, silence was the most powerful truth. The anonymous letter. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. No name. Inside was a single sheet of paper typed on a manual typewriter. Elena made promises she couldn't keep. Don't make the same mistake. Some doors were closed for a reason. Callie stared at it, heart pounding. Who had sent this? Had someone else known about the attic? Was someone watching her? She rushed to the attic and checked the mirror. The clothes. The album. Everything was untouched. But something in the air felt colder. The man on the shore. The next morning, while walking the beach path near the cliffs, Callie saw a man standing by the waterline. Tall. Gray coat. Shoulders hunched. As she passed him, he turned slightly. You're Elena's girl, aren't you? He said. His voice was smooth, like polished steel. Callie tensed. Who are you? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. A friend. Once. Before she locked herself away in dreams and silk. She didn't reply. I'm not here to threaten you, he said, as if reading her thoughts. I just want to remind you, not everyone in this town wants that attic door open again. Callie lifted her chin. Then they better brace themselves. Because it's not closing. Reclaiming the house. That night, Callie returned to the attic with a purpose. She moved the dresses from the racks to cedar-lined wardrobes. She placed fresh candles by the mirror. She even dusted off the second vanity Elena had stored and polished the spare stool. This wouldn't be just her sanctuary anymore. She was going to open it carefully, quietly, to others like her. Artists. Travelers. People like Jordan and Marcy and the others in the album. People who needed to be reminded of who they really were. The guest house would no longer be a secret. It would be a lighthouse. The first guest arrives. The sign was small, handwritten on pressed cardstock, taped gently to the inside of the guest house window. Moonbridge Rest, a place to remember who you are. Private retreat, inquire only by word of mouth. It wasn't posted online. Not advertised in forums. But within days of quietly telling Margot and Bella, the whispers traveled. And one morning, a letter arrived. Remy. The envelope was sky blue. The handwriting nervous but hopeful. Dear Moonbridge Rest. My name is Remy. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for. I only know I've never felt comfortable in my skin. I've changed my name 3 times in the past 5 years and never told anyone why. Someone named Margot told me to write to you. She said you'd understand. I don't need anything fancy. Just a quiet place. And maybe a mirror that doesn't make me cry. Remy, they slashed them, for now. Callie's hand shook as she read it. She folded the letter, lit a candle in the attic, and whispered. Come home, Remy. The arrival. Remy arrived with a duffel bag and eyes full of storm clouds. About 20, with cropped hair dyed half silver, half navy blue. Their voice was soft, their shoulders hunched. Callie opened the blue door. This place, Remy whispered, stepping in. It smells like old dreams. Callie smiled gently. That's because it is. For the next few days, she gave them space. Left folded robes on the vanity. Added little notes by the mirror. Try the green scarf, it loves dramatic lighting. You're allowed to smile here. Remy didn't speak much. But they lingered in the attic. And one night, Callie heard them whisper, My name is Reese. I think. Margot's final visit. That same week, Margot returned. This time, with a vintage trunk bound in cracked leather. Elena left this locked away, she said, resting it in the attic. Said to open it only once you had a guest who needed it more than you. Callie and Reese gathered around as Margot clicked the latches. Inside were gowns, costumes, scarves, makeup kits from the 80s. A collection of journals marked only with dates. And at the bottom, a battered wooden music box. Callie wound it gently. A soft lullaby drifted out, not childish, but haunting. Reese reached for a journal, fingers trembling. Can I? Callie nodded. They opened it. Inside were entries about a name Elena had never used in public. A version of her she lived only in secret. Desires. Longings. Letters she never sent. Reese looked up. She was me. Callie took their hand. She was all of us. The truth about the man on the shore. Later that night, the man in the gray coat returned. This time, he knocked. Callie answered. He didn't threaten. He didn't smile. My name is Thomas. Elena was my sister. Callie's breath caught. She never told me about this place. About who she really was. I only learned after her funeral, when Margot showed me the letters. He looked around the guest house. I was angry. Not at her, at myself. For not seeing it. For making her feel like she had to disappear. Callie said nothing. I sent that first note, he admitted. The warning. I thought I was protecting her memory. But now I see, you're not erasing her. You're fulfilling her. He pulled something from his pocket. A photograph. Elena. Laughing. Holding hands with a younger Thomas at the beach. She deserved to be remembered. As her. Not just the version we allowed. Then he nodded once and left, disappearing into the fog. A lighthouse reborn. That night, Callie stood at the attic window with Reese. The ocean whispered below. The candlelight flickered against the mirror. Callie placed Elena's music box on the vanity beside the locket. Then she turned to Reese. Would you like to light the first lantern? Reese nodded. They lit it together and hung it in the window, a glowing signal to whoever needed to find their way home. The mirror belongs to her now. The sign outside the guest house changed. No longer just a quiet whisper, it now read, Moonbridge Rest. A sanctuary for the in-between. A lighthouse for the becoming. By invitation only. Callie stood at the porch railing, watching as Reese carried a basket of fresh towels to the attic, their newly painted nails flashing in the sunlight. They still wore neutral clothes, still corrected people gently when they were misgendered. But yesterday, they introduced themselves as Reese, she/they. It wasn't an announcement. It was a bloom. The stranger with a legal claim. The peace shattered 2 days later. A man in a sleek black car pulled into the gravel driveway and strode up the porch steps like he owned the world. "Callie Morgan," he asked, flipping through a leather folder. "I'm Preston Moore. I represent the Ray estate." Callie's stomach twisted. "Elena's estate?" He nodded. "It seems there's a complication. Elena Ray never formally updated her will to include you as a beneficiary. The transfer deed was informal at best." She froze. "She left me this house. Her journals. Her locket. And I'm sure that's meaningful," Preston said. "But a blood relative has stepped forward. A cousin from upstate. They're challenging your right to occupy the property." The walls tilted. The floor dropped. "I'm here to serve you formal notice," he said, handing her a stack of documents. "Unless this is resolved, you'll be expected to vacate within 30 days. The letter hidden in the locket. That night, Callie sat at the vanity, hands shaking as she clutched Elena's golden locket. Everything she'd built, the courage, the community, the safety, threatened to vanish. In desperation, she opened the locket again. And something slipped out. A slip of old rice paper. Nearly invisible, folded like a fortune. She opened it. The real deed is in the mirror's hollow frame. Behind the woman I never got to be. If they try to erase you, let them meet me first. Callie dashed to the attic. Behind the mirror's central panel, wedged deep into the wood, was a legal envelope sealed with wax. Inside, an updated will. A notarized deed. A letter addressed to the next keeper of Moonbridge Rest. "I, Elena Marie Ray, leave this property, including the guest house and all its contents, to the individual who unlocks the mirror and names herself truly. She will know who she is. She will know when she is ready. Let no law claim her light. Let no cousin dim it." Callie pressed the papers to her heart. Reese's flight and landing. That same week, Reese announced they were leaving. "I want to go back to school," they said. But as me. Not hiding. "I want to, maybe, become someone who builds places like this." Callie hugged them tight. "You already are." Reese left a letter under their pillow for her. "You gave me more than a place to stay. You gave me the mirror I never knew I needed. When I finally looked into it, I didn't see someone broken. I saw someone ready. Thank you for lighting the way." Reese. The final transformation. Preston returned a week later. Callie handed him a copy of Elena's updated will. His lips parted. "How?" "She left it for me. Behind the mirror." He looked at her, really looked. Callie stood in a lavender blouse, hair swept to one side, Elena's locket gleaming against her collarbone. "This house belongs to her legacy," Callie said, "and now it belongs to mine." Preston slowly closed the folder. "Then I believe we're finished here." The last page in the album. A month later, Callie stood in the attic holding the guest book. Underneath all the old names, Marcy, Jordan, Elena, she added. "Callie Morgan, 2025. She kept the door open. "Reese Lane, 2025. She stopped whispering. And finally danced. Callie reached for a new dress, not one of Elena's this time. One she had chosen herself. Soft green, simple cut, bold neckline. She stepped in front of the mirror and smiled. The woman in the reflection didn't flicker or fade. She stood. She shined.